podcast with me, Jerry Scarvitko. Today I have a great guest, Christopher Dreisbach. May have mispronounced the name there, but we'll correct it in a minute. Christopher is an entrepreneur in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and has a great story that we're going to delve into. So Christopher, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jerry. I don't know if you want me to look at you, look over here. You just let me know.
Wherever you feel comfortable.
All right, perfect. I like to, dart around a lot, so.
That's good. And I want to thank you for setting up your place here. We're actually live on location in your town here.
Yeah. I mean, you came to visit here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We're right now in the Hawkstone Real Estate and Property Management office, which is one of my companies right above another one of my companies, Blueprints for Addiction Recovery. And just thanks for coming. Thanks for coming all the way from North Carolina. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was, like I mentioned to you, we come here pretty much once a year, and I figured, hey, kind of get a local entrepreneur to share their story.
I love it
as well. So, and I've seen a podcast you did with another person, and kind of that piqued my interest into your story and how you came from where you were to become an entrepreneur and business owner. So if we could go back to kind of like your earlier age, when you were in middle school or high school, who were you back then?
Oh, wow. Middle school, high school, I was a big, awkward, really awkward and uncomfortable kid. I mean, I was always like huge. I was already probably 6'2", 6'3" by the time I was 12 and, a couple 100 pounds and just really awkward, uncomfortable, kind of out of place. And then I found alcohol, and alcohol made me feel comfortable. And when I drank, I felt better. And it kind of took me on a long ride and a long journey that we could certainly get into if you want. But.
Yeah, so maybe even before that,
sure.
Were you like academically leaning, or were you into sports in school? Like, what was your social circle back then like?
I loved baseball. I always loved baseball and collecting baseball cards, which led to one of my other companies, Red Rose Sports Cards, which is here in Lancaster. And, I always loved that. I was just really uncomfortable socially, just kind of outgoing, but uncomfortable. And it's kind of like an oxymoron, almost like doesn't make sense, but that's kind of how I was. And I was into baseball, but I came from a kind of poor family, so we didn't really have enough money to go play football or hockey or any of the other sports that a lot of people were getting into. And that was basically me in a nutshell there.
What do you feel like the reason why you were uncomfortable? What was that? Was that just because you were a bigger kid, or what was the reason?
I'm sure there were a number of factors. I was always kind of looking for reasons to separate myself from everybody else. We're poorer than these people. I have to wear, hand-me-down sweatpants while these guys are wearing, Jinko jeans back in the day, and just almost anything I could find internally to separate myself from people outside.
So there wasn't necessarily a real reason. It was just things you were looking forward to kind of give you an excuse.
Yeah, it was a real internal condition, something I found out much more about later through therapy and a bunch of different things. But I always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I remember back in the day, being real excited about yard sales so I could make some money, or going out and shoveling snow, for $5 a clip in the middle of a blizzard, and literally just anything I could do. I was always collecting cards and trading them and trying to turn them into cash. And, I feel like one time I even grabbed a wagon, like a little pull behind wagon, and I filled it with candy from the store and sold it to my friends at school and got in trouble. And, so I've always had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, I guess.
Yeah, getting into the markets, buying and selling things.
Yeah, well before I understood it at all. I just knew it was exciting to create commerce, and I didn't even understand what the word was.
Yeah. And when you were growing up, we'll kind of stay a little bit in when you were younger, but
sure.
When you were growing up, what was your family like? Were you part of two-parent family, or what was that like?
Yeah, I come from a two-parent family. My parents are still together to this day. I spend at least 3 days a week with them because they moved down here to be closer to me and my son and Piper, and just awesome. I mean, growing up wasn't great because they had to work, 60, 70 hours a week to keep me and my 3 brothers fed and clothed and alive. And So I didn't really get to spend a ton of time with my dad, with my mom. But it was a good childhood if you look at it. We grew up in a nice suburban area, went to a quote good school. Looking in from the outside, there was nothing negative, nothing you could really look at, maybe besides being poor. Yeah.
So then kind of growing up, you mentioned you kind of felt a little bit awkward. So in school, did you have friends or were you kind of more like alone? What was that like?
I always had at least a good core group of friends. One of them is still here working with me today, Bobby.
Okay.
Is one of my childhood friends, and now he's down here working in real estate and all sorts of other businesses with me. And I always had a good core group of friends as I went through school. But I just always kind of felt uncomfortable, a little bit different, a little bit off.
And you mentioned kind of like feeling a little bit off. You turned to alcohol. If you could like share a little bit more of the story of kind of going the wrong way.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So I went to a family wedding one night, and I was real uncomfortable, not having a great time, and I was kind of sitting in the corner, miserable, wishing I was anywhere else. And I saw all the adults laughing and dancing and drinking, and eventually, being 13 and having a little beard and, being huge, I walked up to the bar and nobody said a word, and I filled the cup and I drank, and I repeated the process and I repeated it again. And over the course of that process, I started to feel real comfortable and real happy. And I, kept drinking and kept drinking and kept drinking to the point where I, was obliterated mentally and physically, and I got in a whole lot of trouble, and I got grounded, for the rest of my life, because at 13, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
I disappointed my family. It was a big letdown, but I felt so good internally that I decided to chase that feeling as often as I could for realistically the next 7 years of my life.
So that was from 13 to 20.
Yeah.
And what was that? What was your life like through those years?
Oh, it was varied. It was varied and interesting. Obviously, at 13, you're still 13 years old. You still have to go to school. You still have to, answer to your parents and adults and so on and so forth. And, as days progressed and as alcohol progressed and I moved into other drugs, I began to care less and less about, societal boundaries and really everything. Truly, kind of drugs began to overtake every fiber of my being. And it turned from a really fun, early thing to make me comfortable into an absolute nightmare where I could not stay out of jail. I could not have a home. I could not be employable. Nothing was going good. So it went from a very fun experiment to an absolute nightmare.
Were you like, you were conscious, but did you realize what you were doing or what the drugs were doing to you? And did you want to get out of it through that period of time, or what was that like?
So, I had a base conscious understanding because I'd been through DARE classes in school, and I'd seen family members who were addicted to drugs, and I'd seen, people when I got my first job washing dishes at Golden Corral when I was 13, and I saw a bunch of people there drinking and doing drugs, and I was kind of familiar with it, and I saw a lot of the negative consequences, but I feel like through that period of my life at 13 to 20, I felt invincible. And almost like, oh, bad stuff happens to other people, but it wouldn't happen to me. Why would it happen to me? And as bad thing after bad thing after bad thing happened to me, I still had that delusion where it's just like, everything will be all right, because at that point, drugs became paramount to everything else.
And so that was pretty much until you were 20. Like how, or maybe before kind of going to the point of how you came out of it, but what are some stories that you would want to share with others, younger people or whoever's kind of going through that phase in their life?
Wow. I mean, that's a really good question, because I do talk to a decent number of young people and a decent number of folks who are, in middle school and in high school and in early college and, even elementary school, like Piper over here is staring me down and making a funny face. But really, I mean, if you feel that uncomfortability, talk to an adult about it. Talk to your guidance counselor, talk to your parents, talk to somebody you trust, talk to somebody that you love, and let them know you feel uncomfortable. It's not something that you have to be ashamed about. It's kind of something back in the day when I was younger and when you were younger, because I see some gray over there,
Just a little bit.
A little bit, right? When we were younger, it was one of those things that you had to be ashamed of it. You were doing drugs or you were drinking before you were 21, and it was a bad, bad person. Only bad people do that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, sometimes good people get into bad situations. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you don't know why you're feeling uncomfortable, talk to a trusted adult, get into some counseling, and don't be ashamed of it. Don't be afraid of it, because you can get off of that train before it derails. Unlike me, who had to go to jail, 3 or 4 times before I got out of this whole thing. So my advice would be definitely talk to a trusted adult, reach out to somebody that loves you and that you love.
What were some, I mean, obviously drugs were kind of the root cause, but what were some things that got you in jail?
Well, unfortunately, the first time I was arrested, I went and stole a needle out of a woman's house, a diabetic woman's house. And I needed that needle to use my drugs for the day. And the lady was home, and she called the police after I walked into her house, and within a few minutes I was getting arrested. And I got to tell you how terrifying it is to be a good suburban kid about to get arrested, because all I knew about jail at that point was what TV and society had told me, and it's very scary. And anytime you get plucked out of your routine and tossed into a cage, it's a rather unpleasant experience.
So you went to jail one time, and then you mentioned a couple more times you went.
Yeah.
What was that like? Like, now you went to jail. Now you know what that experience is like, and you're getting arrested again.
There's nothing demoralizing, nothing more demoralizing on earth than going to jail, never wanting to go back to jail, not knowing how to not go back to jail, being compelled by a brain disease that you can't control because you don't understand, to do the things that are going to send you back to jail. And it is such a frustrating and complex cycle that creates this nightmare. Now, thankfully, in 2024, we understand a whole lot more about brain science than we did in 2004 and 5 and 6. And so now we have solutions for that brain disease that caused me to do those things. And thankfully, I spend a whole ton of my time working on getting other people access to that treatment so that they can come over to this side and live a great life of purpose.
Yeah. But in terms of going the second time or third time, what was your thought process at that point? Were you like, am I ever going to get out of jail, or like what was that like?
I was fairly confident by the third time that I went to jail. I was confident that I was on a vicious cycle where I was just going to get out of jail, relapse, fail again, go back to jail, get out, relapse, fail, and go back to jail, because I had seen other folks, like my uncle, a couple of my uncles, who were kind of in that cycle of addiction, and they were never really able to get out of it. And they would get out of jail, relapse, do terribly for a while, go back to jail, get out, fail. And I kind of saw myself on that same beaten path for the rest of my life. And there's not much more demoralizing than to be 20 years old and watching your friends from high school go off to college and build relationships, and you're just living in a park, and eating out of dumpsters, and just nobody wants you around because they don't want you to steal from them. And to kind of be cast off from society is a really unpleasant thing. And I just spend a lot of time now making sure that people who feel cast off know that they're not alone.
Yeah. During that time when you were going through those cycles, did you try to seek help? Like, what did you try as far as getting help?
I mean, I feel like at different points I tried different things. I went to rehab 4 times in my life. There wasn't much success in the early rounds, and that could be attributed to any number of things. I don't like to conjecture because that's, way in the past. And but it didn't work. I went to a methadone clinic in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. I drove there. My girlfriend at the time drove me there every morning at 6 o'clock. It was a rough set. Went to a bunch of psych wards. I mean, really just everything that was available back then was stuff that I attempted. And, Suboxone was a new drug that they came out with, I think, in 2003 or 4. And I tried that. I literally tried everything I could.
So what eventually actually worked for you?
Well, absolute serendipitous moments all came together. And a lot of people call it providential. Some people like to, attribute that to the universe, to God, whoever you want to. Something threw me in the right place. And I'll tell you, it was not of my doing in any way, shape, or form, because a judge sent me to rehab. And I went to rehab because I had no other options. I just, had to.
Yeah.
And at that rehab, I had a really great counselor, and he was this little hippie guy. And the little hippie guy, he knew a lot more about recovery than I did. And he theorized that if he got me out of Allentown, out of the area that I was in, I might have a better chance. So he sent me to a halfway house here in Lancaster County in 2007. And I haven't left since. It's 2024. So, clearly it worked out pretty well. And at that halfway house, they were able to give me at least enough therapy to begin the process of retraining my brain. They gave me opportunity. I was able to go out and get my first job here, waiting tables at a diner. And man, I just, got involved in community supports like Alcoholics Anonymous and, Narcotics Anonymous and a lot of the local things going on here. And, they showed me a different way to live. And ever since then, the rest is history. So
it's a little bit of like behavioral change of behavior, behavioral therapy or whatever they call that. So kind of looking at that process, how did you end up like staying in it and actually opening up your own place where you're helping others?
Yeah, I mean that's a long journey. That took a lot of years. It was 17 years ago that I popped up here in Lancaster, and the last 17 years have been very long. We've done a lot of stuff. What happened was, as a part of the recovery program, I was sent back to the halfway house to pick guys up who were currently in the halfway house, and I would take them to meetings and befriend them and show them, what I had done to get to where I was at that point. And at one point in 2010, there was a whole group of 7 or 8 of the guys at the halfway house that were all about to be homeless right around the same time. And we came up with this idea that I would take all the money I had saved up and rent a house downtown so that they could live there. And I would come up with a rule sheet and a guideline sheet and kind of give them some, plans, some parameters on how to live in early recovery. And it ended up working out so well that more people wanted to move in and more people wanted to move in. And I had to go get another house. And then more people wanted to move in and more people wanted to move in. And then I had to go get another house. And at some point, a very wise mentor of mine said, you really need to buy houses instead of rent them. And I said, man, I'm like 3 years out of jail. How do you think I'm going to buy a house? And he said, well, listen, I'll give you a loan at 11% interest, and I'll let you buy this house. And I said, all right, sure. And everybody around me was like, 11%. Right. No, don't do that. You're an idiot, and everybody would tell me that. And I bought that one, then I bought another one, and then I bought another one, and I bought another one using somebody else's capital. And after a period of time, I started to realize what was occurring as I was building equity, and I was actually starting this new fiscal journey that I didn't even understand. I just kind of got tossed into business, and I recognized how much I loved it, and developed a passion for real estate, and now we're sitting in my real estate brokerage. So it's just an awesome journey on so many levels in so many different industries.
But you got into it not like a lot of entrepreneurs are like, okay, I want to make money. I want to like their motivations are more on the money, maybe the fame, on the glamour of entrepreneurship, not necessarily on there's a problem. I really want to solve this problem.
Yeah.
For you, it was more about solving the problem, right? Like, what was your motivation at the time?
I mean, that was really just an unintentional kind of thing that happened that first time. And I've kind of found most of the businesses that I walk into looking to make money in, I don't do as well at. And honestly, the more I focus on problem solving, the more I focus on people building, the better the businesses go. And I love people building. Most of my companies are partnerships, and most of those partnerships are with folks who have some kind of disadvantage in their life, be it addiction, be it criminal history, so on and so forth. And I really just love helping people realize their dream of entrepreneurship, because it is a beautiful thing.
What would you suggest to people who want to start a business? Like what?
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Because so many people, I talk to hundreds of prospective entrepreneurs monthly, really, and the difference between the entrepreneurs who fail and the entrepreneurs who succeed is the ones who fail don't start. They don't try. The ones who succeed try and do it. And honestly, if you have enough passion, if you have enough heart, if you have enough love for what you're doing, you can't fail. I've seen so few people fail at something that they love, that it's kind of unbelievable. And really just do it. Like, just start. That's the key.
Yeah. Going back to, you mentioned kind of like the mental disease. Can can you elaborate a little bit more? Back then, you were not aware of it. Now you have more knowledge around it and understanding. Can you kind of define what it is and elaborate on it?
Sure. If you want to get into a little neuroscience, we can.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm no doctor. Let's just establish this right now. Piper knows because I'm getting the funny face again. You got to come over here for some of this at some point. But so the brain disease of addiction is pretty simple. I don't know if you know too much about the brain, but your brain is comprised of a ton of different parts. The ones that are important for this discussion are the cerebral cortex and the limbic system. And if you're not familiar with either of those, I'll give you a real quick breakdown. The cerebral cortex is where reality happens. That's where we are right now, having a civil discussion. This is where we can talk about art and music and enjoy things and really our perception of reality and how we see them. And then the limbic system is our base brain, the caveman brain, the lizard brain. There's a lot of different names for it. That's the fight or flight mode. That's where we go to when our life is threatened. That's where we go to when we have to do something for survival. And what happens on a person who has substance use disorder like myself is when we use drugs of abuse, they act directly on our limbic system. And what will happen is eventually, as I use more and more drugs, there will be a neural pathway created in my brain that bypasses my cerebral cortex entirely. And then I start operating in fight or flight. And my brain mistakenly believes drugs of abuse to be more important to me than air, food, or water. And that is what leads me, a person of, moderate intelligence and moderate repute and moderate willpower, leads me to do things that I wouldn't otherwise do. Because my brain is telling me that I have to do that or I will die. It's almost akin to, my CEO of Blueprints, Ben McCoy, often says it during trainings that if you look at somebody putting a plastic bag over your head, your first base instinct when your limbic system lights up is get the bag off my head or I'm going to die, right? So I'm going to do everything in my power to remove the bag from my head or I'm going to die. It opens up reserves in my brain, access to things that I wouldn't otherwise have because my brain knows that I'm going to die if I don't get the bag off my head. It is exactly the same way. And that is exactly how I felt when I knew I needed heroin. And it is such an uncomfortable and awkward thing to have to go through, to know that the thing you need to survive is the thing that's going to send you to jail, the thing that's going to continue to ruin your life, but you have no power to stop it. If that made any sense, hopefully.
It does. I'm just thinking through, so the disease part is basically like the bypassing of the cerebral cortex and
the creation of that neural pathway. And that's the thing where you just can't stop it. There's nothing that you can do unless you're separated from it long enough to begin therapy to retrain your brain.
So you physically have to be restrained from the drug and
that's
go
typically
through that
why
withdrawal. And
the first step will be going to a detox center, or unfortunately for me, 3 times in my life, jail, where they don't give you many medications for comfort, and it's a very ugly process.
So for me, whenever I hear disease, disease to me is almost like random, like somebody has cancer or something like that. That's disease. But then, if you play sports and you get injured, it's like an injury. So an injury is not a disease.
No.
So in my mind, it's almost like, is it a disease or is it more like an injury kind of a thing, in that sense?
There's a lot of different ways that people look at it. And truly, I don't argue with anybody about it because it really just isn't that important why, when, or how. All I focus on is if you have that problem or if you feel the things that I used to feel, let's take care of them. If you're struggling and your life is going way off the rails and you don't like where you're headed, reach out and get some help. Those are the things that I like to focus on.
The other thing I'm thinking through is, especially in the 90s and 2000s, there were a lot of medication, right? Okay, you have ADHD, you have this, you have that, here's some drugs for you, here's this drug, here's that drug. And it seemed like, yes, we have all these drugs, but they're not attacking the root cause. They're just kind of okay, we'll take care of your symptoms for you.
Yes. Yeah.
And then those symptoms may turn into other issues that then you need other drugs and so on. So what have you kind of learned through this process and being in those circles about drugs versus no drugs, therapy, what kind of therapy, all of that?
The one thing I've really learned is that every human is an individual. And what works for me doesn't always work for you. because you're different than me. You came from the Ukraine, you know. I came from Emmaus, Pennsylvania. Two very different places, right? You know, the experiences of your life have been very different than the experiences of mine. And even if they were similar, we're still different people. So what works for you is going to be different than what works for me. So what's important in this exact instance of addiction or substance use disorder is finding an individualized care plan, an individualized treatment plan that actually works for you, that addresses the root cause, just like you said, because that's the key to living a life of purpose and freedom.
Yeah.
Is attacking that root cause and fixing it. Yep.
What it seemed like you mentioned you had some help along the way, kind of guiding you into what that was. If somebody is out there and wants to get out of that lifestyle, like how do they find the right person to guide them out of it?
Again, that's going to be different for everybody. If you're truly lost and you have no idea who to reach out to, look me up on social media. You know, reach out. I can always find somebody for you to talk to. I can always talk to you myself. But really, you know, for me, my mom was the person who I always kind of reached out to, even though, you know, I usually ended up just getting arrested and going to jail anyway. My mom was always kind of that rock for me, and she still is to this day. When I run into problems with, you know, life or my kids, I'll reach out to my mom, I'll reach out to my dad, but not everybody has access to their mom or dad. So, you know, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to help.
So tell us a little bit about the different companies you have today. Like you have so many.
Yeah.
Let's start with whichever one.
It's always fun when we get to talk about these, because like I feel bad because when I forget one or I don't, you know, mention it, I feel like I'm leaving somebody out and I might hurt their feelings. So if I leave out the company, I apologize. I don't know. What do you want to talk about first? You want to talk
well,
about...
I guess we're in real estate
let's talk.
firm here. So like, explain how you started this and then what's going on with it today.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on to the next one.
In real estate, it's really fun because I'm a convicted felon. I'm a felon, also a burglar, and I have a real estate license. And it was really interesting. In 2014, I was buying a lot of properties and I was going out with a real estate agent who was great. And I kind of realized how much I enjoyed the real estate process. And I was like, man, I'm going to take my test. I'm going to get my real estate license. And everybody around me was saying like, Chris, you're a burglar, you're a felon, you idiot. They're not going to give you one of these. I was like, all right, fair, you know, but I did it anyway. And I took the test and I passed. And I went around here locally to find a broker who will sign off on my good character, because they have to do that and put their license on the line to get me mine. And most of them laughed me out of the building. They were like, yeah, right. You know, like, you see your criminal record, I'll never sign that. And eventually I found one guy here locally who did sign it. And he gave me an opportunity, and eventually I got my real estate license, and I've been super pumped to help first-time home buyers and other people just get into wealth building and get into their own home, especially coming from where I came from. It's such a beautiful moment to watch somebody else get the key to their first house and start that process of wealth building. And then furthermore, 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, I get to help them move into their next house or their forever house. And those moments are such pivotal moments for families. I love just having a tiny hand in those. So we started Hawkstone after that broker who gave me an opportunity retired. And you know, loyal to him until the very last day of his career, because he gave me an opportunity when nobody else would. And I'm forever grateful for him giving me that chance. And now we have the opportunity to help other people here at Hawkstone who may have criminal records, who may have backgrounds that are, you know, not the greatest, and they may not feel like they could do this. And now they can come here, have a great career, have a great opportunity to do the same things I was able to do. And there's something so fabulous about being able to pass that opportunity on to the next person, and then watch what they do with it, and then watch them pass it to the next person. And the multiplicative ripple effect that occurs is just something that I love.
Yeah. Do you do commercial or is it just residential?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Yeah. Focus on residential. We still do commercial just because of all the other, you know, things that we have going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's another business?
What do you want to talk about? Let's talk about you know, Red Rose Sports Cards.
Okay.
Red Rose Sports Cards is my partner Adam and my partner Matt. We banded together in 2020, I want to say. And we opened up Red Rose Sports Cards, which is a 2,600 square foot retail space in Lancaster. And We offer all the, vintage sports cards. We offer non-sports cards. We got Pokemons. We got all sorts of things I don't understand. Yeah, it's just awesome to be able to see, because some of my best memories of my childhood are going out to card shows or card shops with my grandfather and my grandmother. And to be able to watch moms and dads bring their kids in now, and be able to watch grandmas and grandpas bring their kids in and have those family moments in our shop, just again, being able to provide those pivotal family moments for other people, amazing, amazing.
So in that case, you have two other partners in that business.
Yep.
What is it like working with other partners?
Interesting. It's very interesting working with other partners, because everybody's different. Everybody's an individual. Everybody has their own emotions and their own things they're experiencing. And it is very interesting having the number of partners that I have, and being able to kind of work with and manage all those different human emotions is always an experience.
What are some tips that you would recommend to others? Like, as far as forming a partnership, do you go through some kind of like, okay, let's define individual roles and goals? You're in charge of this or that, or we're kind of split things up. Like, what are some details that you can share around that?
Definitely want to make sure you have a clear understanding. You definitely want to make sure you're comfortable with the people that you're in business with, and you want to be flexible. One of the biggest things that I see, the biggest failures that I see, is people lacking flexibility and thinking that they know everything. Because I went through that. Young entrepreneurs most frequently think they know everything. I thought I knew everything for a really, really, really long time. Turns out I didn't know much of anything. Now that I know more, I know less. And now I am flexible. Yeah. And now when I sit down with a group of my partners, we figure out a solution. We don't fight over it. We come up with the solution. We figure out how we're going to pivot if we find a difficulty, and we move forward. And I think flexibility, being open to other people's opinions is very important, and not adversarial, because you're all on a team. Remember, you're on a team. Remember, you're fighting for the same goal, because a lot of times partners will start to fight, let infighting, let stress get to you. Don't let any of that stuff happen. It'll happen anyway, but try not to let it.
How did you resolve some of that conflict in the past?
Lots and lots of yelling, lots and lots of listening, lots and lots of arguments, lots and lots of time. I'm trying to think of a good specific thing to give you, but there's just so many. There's always something. There's always something coming up in every business. Another one is a food service, full service concessions group, which also has Susquehanna Soda Company under it. And that one has so many moving parts, because we have a shared commercial kitchen, and we have municipal concessions where we do pools for local townships, and then we do concessions for schools. So if you think about that, that's 3 companies in one, and you have a whole lot of moving parts with 3 partners. So, everything is so different and so nuanced that it's really difficult to just kind of unilaterally pull something out. Yeah.
How do you, in that case, how do you find the right employees for those companies?
Ooh, that's always a fun one, and it's different in every industry. With food service, we always kind of look for somebody with a passion for service. Really, passion is the one thing you can't teach, and that's what I look for when I hire anybody anytime is, do you have that intangible? Do you have the one thing that I can't teach you? Because I could teach anybody to do anything. Yeah. But I can't teach you to have passion. I can't teach you to love other people. I can't teach you to care. I can't teach those things. So that's what I always look for with folks I'm working with, because those are the things that can't really be shifted without some kind of monumental change.
So in case of those people, like you came from kind of alcoholism and drug addiction, and you came out of it, right? Is there a parallel to people who are not passionate? Can they come out of that and become passionate?
I definitely think so, because I was, previously not even remotely passionate about a lot of things I'm passionate about now. Real estate, I didn't even know real estate existed 15 years or 20 years ago at this point. I didn't even really understand that existed at all, and I became passionate about it. So I think to get to passion, you have to be open-minded. To get to being open-minded, you have to have some life experience. To get to life experience, you have to experience things. So there's just so many different kind of paths to passion, but helping people find that is one of the things that I love doing.
What if people are kind of nihilistic? They're like, what's the point of it all anyway?
Yeah.
So then
I get that way myself too sometimes.
that kind of leads to not having passion, right? So like,
Yes.
how do you help somebody like that? Like they're like, why am I even doing anything? Like,
I can speak to that from a personal level, because on occasion I get that way, and on occasion, why do I do all this? Why am I sacrificing the last 15 years of my life? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? What's the point? What's here? And then what will invariably happen is somebody who will come out of the woodwork and tell me how massively I impacted their life and where they went because of something I did. And then it reminds me that there is a reason. Even if I don't see it all the time, there are so many reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing. There are so many reasons that you're doing what you're doing. And you may not see them all the time, but the universe is working very mystically behind you. And
yeah. What's your view on God versus universe? Today it's like everybody uses all kinds of terms.
There's so many. There's so many. My personal belief, there's definitely something out there that is way greater than me, and something that has moved and shifted my life in ways that I could not on my best day. And I don't like to, step out of the box and tell anybody what to believe, tell anybody how to feel, because I feel like that leads to division and divisiveness. And I don't want anything to do with division, not even a little bit. I know, my mom is a very active Christian. She is the happiest woman. She should be a saint. The light in her eyes is unbelievable. It's undeniable. And that's what she lives and she loves and she believes. And I support that 1,000,000%. Piper, stop looking at me, you goober. I have friends who are Buddhists, and they are so happy and so peaceful and so calm, and the love and the light that they bring to the world is amazing. And I love that, and I support that. And I don't fall into any of those categories. I love love, and I love light, and I love watching people be happy and find their place. So that's where I land.
Okay, good. So kind of going to the next company.
Sure, yeah, where do you want to go now?
Well, you had the recovery. What was it,
Yeah, Blueprints.
Blueprints.
Blueprints for addiction recovery, yep.
How is that? I mean, we heard a little bit of how it started.
Well, that was
what's
actually
it like right now?
That was a different company. That was a New Life Sober Living. So I started the first sober living community in Lancaster County in 2010, and I gave that away in 2017. In 2016, we opened Blueprints, which is a state licensed drug and alcohol treatment operation. We now have many sites and many employees. I think we're up to 180 employees.
Just in Lancaster or in other cities?
Lancaster and York counties. So we have just 2 counties here. Blueprints is constantly growing. We're constantly focused on the individualization of treatment plans for people and really moving them on from where they are to where they need to be. And Blueprints just continues to grow. I stepped back from my role as the CEO. I was the CEO for, 8+ years. And, 4 or 5 months ago, I decided to step back and focus a little bit more on my kids and my family. And, after having sacrificed the last 15+ years to business, it was time. Piper's 7 and baby Chris is almost 2. And come here, Piper. Come over here. Just run over here real quick. Say hi to Piper. What do you want?
Hi, Piper.
You want to ask Piper a question? You should interview Piper real quick.
Oh. What sports are you going to play?
I'm doing softball.
Yeah.
And I'm probably gonna do baseball.
Baseball? How about basketball? You love basketball, right? Yeah.
I think volleyball is pretty popular.
Oh, volleyball's a ton of fun, right? And we do a charity volleyball tournament every year.
And if you're going to be as tall as your dad, you're going to be perfect for volleyball.
Whoa. Whoa. All right, goober. So I stepped back from that role as CEO a few months ago. And
are you still involved in the company, or are you not really involved?
Way less than I was before. I still stay in touch with the C-suite team and look at, long-term goals, initiatives, finance, et cetera. But as far as operations go, no, not involved anymore. And it's been very interesting to take something that consumed so much of 8 years of my life, effectively my baby, and to hand it over to guys who were with me for 8 years anyway. Yeah. It's been an adjustment period over the last 4 or 5 months.
What are some key things as part of that adjustment that you felt like you had to adjust?
I mean, really, having Piper and having baby Chris, they need more attention. They need more of my time. And for a long time, I was not really focused on that aspect of my life. It just became really clear to me that family time was super necessary. And
What about within the company? Like, how did you had to transit? Like, when you were transitioning it from yourself to others to lead it, what was that like?
well, it was great because what we called the triumvirate, myself and Ben and Jesse, we were always very collaborative. So we would always kind of run decisions by each other and make sure that we were all involved in each part, each facet of operations. So the transition wasn't as difficult as it might have been in a more traditional company, where everybody has their roles and they stay in that lane. The three of us were kind of all in each other's lanes, all understanding what each other did. So when it was time for me to transition to Ben, it was almost like, hey, Ben, step to the side, just do this over here, and transition some of his roles to other people so I could transition mine to him. So it was a very smooth, unbelievably smooth. And Ben is better than I am anyway. So it's only going to take Blueprints way, way further than I ever could have taken it without him.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to see something you start and grow and then kind of see it, you step back from it, but you see it continue to grow. So,
yeah, and that's the key is having the right people, having high quality people who are passionate, understanding, intelligent, and Ben encompasses and embodies all of those things.
So speaking of people, how do you attract, or how do people come into your circles that are these kind of high capacity or high quality type of people?
Pure happenstance, maybe magic. I feel like there's so many incredible people everywhere. Every time I get to travel, I get to meet so many new people. Every time we do an event or I talk somewhere, or even we just put a new video out on YouTube from Babaconda Productions, and people reach out from Mississippi and Alabama and Seattle and Australia, and there's just so many dynamic people with so much passion and so much heart all across the world. It's really just a matter of putting your hand out and finding them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What other companies do you have? I'm looking kind of at your profile to see what else is out there.
I don't even know if those are fully accurate anymore.
Maybe not.
Well, Babaconda Productions is the shirt I have on here, and that's a video production company, and we'll do commercials for other businesses and documentaries. We do a whole lot of recovery-related documentaries, and several of them out on Prime Video, actually. You can look out for those. Night of Recovery live from Moravian Center, Night of Recovery live from Waynesboro Theater, and Repurposed Season 1 are all on Prime Video. Everyone on Earth has Amazon, so you can find that pretty easily.
Definitely check it out.
We also have a lot of newer projects on our YouTube channel, Babaconda Productions YouTube, so look those up. Take a watch if you want some inspiration, you want to check some cool stuff out there.
Definitely.
Another company, Three Legacies Wrestling, is one of my favorites because I've always been a huge wrestling fan. Piper is a huge wrestling fan. We get to watch wrestling events once a month here locally, and now we're starting to regionalize a little bit more.
What kind of wrestling?
Professional wrestling, sort of like the theatrical, athletic theater,
WWE,
sort of like WWE. Yep,
Okay.
Exactly. And man, that is so cool. We do family-friendly wrestling. Nothing it's like you might have thought of from the 90s, the blood, the sex, the guts, all that terrible stuff. It's all family-friendly, so that little people like Piper can come out and enjoy, and we have another family evening, and really just a community building. There's always a charity aspect to Three Legacies Wrestling, so we did a big food drive for the Food Hub, which I'm also a board member of the Lancaster Food Hub, and just Three Legacies, a huge community company, and really love that one.
Do you actively run it, or are you like, what's your
So
role
my
in it?
partner in that is Jesus Rodriguez, who was in the WWE himself for 5 years. So he actively runs Three Legacies Wrestling. He is the impetus behind it. He's the man, the myth, and the legend as it relates to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm here in support of him in whatever way I can be.
Yeah. What's are there any others? Are we missing any others?
We're missing tons of them. You want to talk about SO Arts? SO Arts is a collective art gallery in downtown Lancaster. It's Lancaster's #1 art gallery at this point, I believe, and I've never been a big art guy, but my two partners there have a real passion for art and a real passion for helping new artists have a place to display their art. So they have over 70 artists displaying in that.
Is it like painting or drawing or
Oh,
what
different
kind of art
different mediums of art.
Okay.
This is not something I speak to eloquently or very well at all because I am not an artiste. My art is business. Yeah, but there's gosh, what kind of cool stuff is over there. There's like woodworkers. There's clothing makers. There's painters. There are. Gosh, there's just so many different you almost have to see it to believe it. It's such a cool thing. And there's a tattoo studio upstairs. So if you like tattoo, I don't have any tattoos, but I still, am a part of it.
Yeah.
Because you support people's passions, you build people, people build other people, and then communities spring up. The more communities you have, the happier and healthier people are around you.
Right. How do you become a part of these companies? Like how did those companies come together and you being there in a supportive role?
In a lot of cases, folks will approach me with a business idea and then oftentimes not even a business plan because they don't know how to make a business plan. So they'll come to me with a business idea. I'll break it down into what I call homework. I'll kind of give them homework to build a business plan. After a while of doing the simple little bits of homework, you realize now you have a business plan. If the business plan is viable, I look at it as an option. Possibly invest. Not always, but possibly. And if it comes to the point where it looks like it's a good investment, then I'll go there. But either way, I've helped them build a business plan and they can go whichever route they want. So either way, still building people, whether or not I become a part of the business.
So you, in a lot of these businesses, you're more like on the investment side, like you're an investor in the.
At this point, yes, 100%. I don't have too much time now with the new shift in my life, focusing on the youth of these beautiful little guys, and but eventually, maybe after they grow up, maybe we'll do another startup or 2 or 3 or 8 or 20 or 40, and we'll see.
Yeah.
See where the world takes us.
Yeah. For younger people, what would you recommend for them to find their passion? Because it's almost like everybody says follow your passion. Not everybody, but a lot of people say follow your passion, which is a great advice. But
it is
how do you
advice.
get passion when you don't have it, right?
Great
you got to
point.
do something first.
Yes, I say explore. If you want to find your passion, if you don't know what your passion is, explore. Go do stuff, because I find new passion over and over and over and over, and it is as thrilling each time. So the more you explore, the more you do, the more you find out. The worst thing that can happen is you do something, realize you don't like it, and don't do it again.
Yeah.
So really just go out, explore, do things, reach out to people, talk to them, post on social media, talk to, whatever it is. Go out to a local high school football game. Go, there's so much stuff in the universe. Just go explore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other companies.
Other companies. All right, what's next? The 9 Collective is a new, this is also something way out of my wheelhouse. It's like a metaphysical store where stuff happens. And Zoe, my partner there, is an absolute genius as it relates to these things. I sound like a complete turd when I talk about it because I don't understand it at all. But what I do understand is Zoe's passion, how much she helps people, and how she makes them feel safe and comfortable and loved and wanted and gives them a space to feel that way. That's why I bought in, and that's why I love it. And watching a community spring up around her and the things that she's doing is beautiful to me. So the 9 Collective is another one.
So what is that? Like, if you can elaborate a little bit more on it.
I feel like
Sounds interesting, but
I feel like we should call her right now. Is that okay? Can we call her and let her?
If you want her, I mean, if she's fine. Or
is that a thing? All right, let's do that. I don't know how many people do this on podcasts, but we're going to do it today.
Yeah, why not?
Because you know what? She can explain it way better than I can. No, not you. We'll see. We'll see if we can get a live answer. From
Maybe
Zoe.
hold it like close to your microphone.
All right, we'll do it like this.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hey Zoe, we're live on a podcast right now. I need you to explain what the 9 Collective is to the podcast audience, and go.
The 9 Collective is a safe, inclusive space for everyone to experience new things, learn new things, create, and vibe.
What are some of the things? Some of the go.
There's classes from candle making to embroidery. There's going to be a free human library experience in July. There is boudoir shoots. There's a mindful and recovery group. There is painting. There is bingo. There's fitness.
How does metaphysical?
Oh, the
come into
metaphysical
it?
stuff. Talk about that quick.
Yeah, there's the metaphysical stuff.
Yep, that's where I was stuck.
So essentially, the metaphysical piece of this is to give people a safe space to explore different ways of life or continue on the journey they're already on. There is tools in the store from local businesses to assist you with that. And there's also a lot of classes and workshops to teach and experience new things that you may have been scared to do in the past.
All right, thanks, though.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
See ya. There you go. I was way better than I could have ever given you on that one.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Other ones. I feel like you got probably
way more. We got patio fitters. Patio fitters is sort of like hardscaping on a budget.
Okay.
So if you want new hardscaping around your patio, old concrete, you want to spice it up, just for much cheaper than traditional hardscaping. And that's my part.
Is it like actually laying pavers or concrete or other things?
Yep. So my partner Scott Moore was actually one of the people who helped me early in recovery in 2007 and 8 and 9 and 10, and he came to me with this idea and bought in immediately, because to see his transformations of people's patios for really, really unbelievably affordable price, and to be able to see people's happiness with that transformation of their home, I mean, that was an easy one to buy into. And a guy like Scott with his integrity and his ethics, easy choice.
How does he keep prices low? For
it
seems like construction right now, like everything's been going up, and
he's been in the business for, I don't even want to say, probably 30 or more years. I'm sorry if that was wrong, Scott, but yeah, he's pretty old at this point. So I can't speak to how he does what he does, but I do know that it is absolutely awesome. So look it up on social media, patio fitters.
I mean, you need to be profitable, otherwise you're going to be out of business, right? So
yes,
you can't, bring it down too low.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
He has a real heavy focus on teaching other people his industry, and real heavy focus on doing some work with inner city youth and a lot of kids.
Okay, so does he bring them onto job sites and have them do some of the work or something?
I think at times, yeah. Yep.
Okay. So maybe there's like a synergy there where they get to learn, and he can keep the prices low because they're learning. They're not.
Well, I don't know if it's like
I don't know.
on those jobs. I think he does like charity jobs, and then like we'll teach them.
Okay.
It's definitely interesting, but check it out on the social media for sure.
Definitely.
As far as other companies, I'm trying to think here. I know I'm missing some.
Nice.
Piper, can you think of any? Can you think of any? What other works? What other works do we have? Now we talked about wrestling. I know that's your favorite.
Yeah. So when it comes to, you mentioned you step back a little bit, focusing a little bit more on family.
Yes.
How are you going about that? Like, what are you? Do you have any kind of like routines or traditions or whatever it is?
I am currently building routines, and I'm currently building little traditions. Piper and I go to Starbucks pretty often in the morning before we, either go to school or work or wherever we're going. What else do you like to do, buddy? We go to wrestling once a month. Yeah. What else?
When we went to the pool once.
Right. We go to the pool.
Oh yeah. Also, we worked at the waffle shop.
Oh, that's right. We have Joe Head's Waffles. We work occasionally on waffle truck because we have food trucks, and just currently building traditions. Currently building and seeing what life brings, because it's only been 4 or 5 months, that I've been able to step back long enough to focus.
What would you say is like a key thing to have a healthy family?
Ooh, I'm real new. I'm real new at this whole thing. So I think spending time, right? Spending time and focusing on each other. That's the key. and helping others, right? Being of service and being kind.
Helping baby man how to walk, and he already knows how to
Yep.
walk since he's only 1.5.
Yeah, helping your baby brother learn how to walk. But yeah, really what I'm pushing for is spending time and giving my heart to these guys.
I'm assuming you're married.
No.
No?
No. I am single.
He was married, but now
I
he's
was
just
married in 2012 to 2014. I was married, and that was well before
Only 2
this guy or this little lady existed. And no.
Is it okay to ask you like what happened? What?
We're just much better off separate.
Okay.
We're just much better off separate. Yeah.
Is there like a lesson or something that you could pass on to other people? It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to talk about specifics, but in general terms.
I mean, just, don't settle if you're not happy. Just constantly move towards what's going to make you happy, and then fill your heart and fill your cup and fill your life. It became really clear to me that my kids were the things that were going to make me happy for the longest time, and where my effort and my attention was best focused. And as soon as that was made clear, that is where I started moving. And as soon as the world shows you where you need to go, follow it. That's the best advice I can give.
Yeah. So anything else you'd like to talk about, like to share with the audience?
I mean,
Anything in particular?
I think we covered a whole lot there. That was a
did the tickets. You forgot to share that.
Piper wants to share that she gets to pull the tickets on the raffles at the wrestling show. So,
Nice.
as far as stuff, really, if you're looking to move into entrepreneurship, do it. Go. Be bold. Step out. Doesn't matter what other people say. Doesn't matter what other people think. Just go. And if you're struggling in life, reach out. Talk to people about it. Constantly seek for a solution. And truly, you never know where you're going to land. I mean, if you'd asked me where I was going to be 20 years ago, I would have told you dead. And I'm far from dead right now. I am as alive as I have ever been in 2024, and I cannot wait to see what the rest of this year holds. And I can't wait to see what next year holds. And I can't wait to see what the next decade holds. And if you asked me 10 years ago, this is not how my life would have turned out. If you asked me 5 years ago, this is not how my life would have turned out. If you asked me 1 year ago, this is not how my life would have turned out. So all that I've learned there is just go, just do.
So even people who may not have hope, give it a try. Eventually you'll get that
Oh,
hope,
there's
right?
always hope. If a convicted felon, burglar like me, guy who used to be homeless, used to eat out of dumpsters, if I can move on and be an owner of multiple companies, if I can move on and have a beautiful family, if I can move on and live a beautiful life, I guarantee you can. Absolutely, unequivocally guarantee that you can have a great life yourself if you just step out and go. And if you're lost, reach out to me. I'm always happy to help, always happy to talk.
Well, Chris, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerry.
For being on the podcast. And let's stay in touch and
Absolutely,
go
man.
forward with that. Yeah.
Say thank you, Jerry.
Oh, you're welcome, Piper.
Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you.